I've really approached my journey as marketing and as just like building a reader base by really loving on my readers and especially loving on my loudest readers. So the readers that are like talking about my books and, really like engaging in my groups, those are the ones that I just really wrap up in big group hugs because they don't have to tell the world about my books, right? Like they don't have to take time out of their day to do that.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, onto the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hey, boss. If you are starting on your author journey but are nervous about marketing, then I've got something special for you. I've just released a book called Start Marketing Your Book. In it, I share fundamental marketing principles and simple, actionable steps that you can take right now. For less than a cup of coffee, you could actually have everything you need to start selling more books. To buy the book, go to authorlikeaboss.com/start marketing. Hello, bosses. Hello, everybody. We are here today I'm really excited to be here with Coralee June. I invited her to be on the show after I read her book and was like, oh my gosh! I'm like, do you want to be on my show? So let me tell you a little bit about her. She has always been passionate about storytelling and impressed by the influence it has on people. She is an English major from Texas State University, and her wild affair with literature began at a young age. She loves angst. She loves to crack open a book and borrow the character's emotions for a little bit. It's how she approaches writing, too. She lives in Dallas, Texas, with her husband and two beautiful, headstrong daughters.
Very headstrong.
I love that part the best. I love young women who are like, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yep, that would describe them. So,
okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I was really excited when you reached out to me, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I was very excited to reach out to you. I was like, since I started the podcast, I'm like, this is awesome. Because now I get to like read the books and then be like, hey, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? That way I can meet you and fangirl a little bit. Yay!
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
It's so dorky, but it's also like, it gives me a chance to say in person how much I really love your books. So I really love your books.
Well, thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. No, sorry. I made that super awkward because people have a really hard time sometimes being appreciated. But okay, so let's just jump into, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your author journey?
Well, I published my first book last December, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. It was one of those things where like I wrote a book and I was like, I like this. And I published it. And then I hid in a corner for about a week until my mother was like, did you actually do that? And I was like, But since then, I've published 6 books and I've learned a lot on the journey. My first series is dystopian, reverse harem. I found out I was saying harem wrong the first 3 months too, so that was fun.
How were you saying it?
I was saying harem.
Okay.
And so someone corrected me. They're like, no, honey, that's not how. And I was like, man, I've been reading this forever and I've been saying it wrong the whole time. That's okay. And then my latest book is a contemporary RH. It's got some suspense, some twisty, a little dark, and that's been really fun too. So my writing journey, it's been fun to learn and meet with a lot of people. I took a lot of writing classes in college, and I've always really just been passionate about reading and writing, but actually diving into author world has been just like a dream come true for me.
I have a question, like, what is it that took you from dreaming and, thinking and taking classes and stuff? What happened to have you like put that first book out there?
So I was this huge, still am, fangirl of Julia Clark. I think you actually interviewed her.
I love her.
I absolutely adore her. So I reached out to her and I was like, hi, I'm a huge fan of yours. Please be my friend. Oh my goodness. And she responded to me and we started talking back and forth and she would tell me about her process. And one day I had just had a baby and I was sitting there and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what am I super excited about? And I messaged Julia and I said, I'm going to publish a book and I'm telling you so you can keep me accountable. You don't have to read it. You don't have to talk about it. You can just like smile and wave, but I'm telling you so that 6 months from now I can say, hey, I actually did it. And 6 months to the date, I said, hey, I actually did it. And she was so supportive the whole time. And I think making that friend with someone who was just an incredible cheerleader in my life really made the difference. It's crazy how having one person believe in you makes you want to take that step.
Oh my gosh. I think that's very profound, actually. I think that's very profound. Having one person who believes in you and who has done it.
Yes, that was a big thing too, because she was able, it's like she paved that path, like she made mistakes, just like everyone makes mistakes. And so she was able to kind of guide me in the right way while still letting me be true to my own journey. And so it was really cool just having a genuine person who celebrated that with me. So she's amazing. I'll always sing her praises.
Yeah. I really like her as well. And I'm like, she is a true Southern gentlewoman.
Yes, she is. She's a very classy woman. We actually had lunch yesterday, so it's funny to talk about her. She lives in the area, but yes, she's a very classy woman.
Yeah, she is. I was like, towards the end of the interview with her, I was like, I am way not as classy as she is. But I still love and adore her. So, okay, that's so fun that you live near each other. Does that make a difference?
We didn't really, we met up a couple times, but really she would just talk to me on Facebook. That's why I love social media. Like it makes your favorite authors so accessible now. And so I had a brave moment. Wine might have been involved. I don't know. And I just reached out to her and I was like, hi, can we please be friends? So, and she was really gracious and kind, and that's how it all began.
Oh my gosh, that's so lovely. Okay, I have a question about one part that you said that after you put your book out, you hid for a week. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, why?
I think it's scary. It's such a vulnerable thing to put yourself out there for the world. Like you kind of like carve out a tiny little piece of your soul and you put it in this book and you're like, here world, judge this, please. Like it's scary. And I hid for a little while because there's so many different like faux pas and things like that in the author world. And you don't know what you're doing till you're in it sometimes. Like you can research and you can read all these things and all the articles, but even so, like once you're in it, that's when you start learning. And I think I was just scared of not knowing. I was scared of judgment. I was scared of like doing things the wrong way and people, going, oh, who is this person? Everything about it was terrifying for me. And then finally, ironic, I call her Grandma June. She likes to have her own personality on social media. My grandmother and her, she read my book and she's like, it's wonderful. I don't know why you're hiding. Like, why do you hide? And it was just this crazy moment where I was like, you're right. Why do if my grandmother loves it, everyone's going to love it, right? Is that like what we tell ourselves? My grandmother loved it. So I hid for so long, or for that week, out of fear, but finally, like just accepting the journey is when I stepped up and was like, okay, I can accept this. I can log into Amazon. I can see what the reviews are. And then I was shocked that the reviews were good because, I'd been hiding. So I didn't know that people actually liked it. And then I logged into Facebook and I had all these friend requests. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we can do this,
That's awesome. That is so amazing. I read your book when it first came out too. And I also enjoyed it. So I'm so glad that you stopped hiding and that Grandma June wanted to come back out.
You know what? Yes, Grandma June is sassy. Like, I made her sound she's actually really sassy because she was like, will you please stop hiding? Like, stop. You're being ridiculous. Just like pull yourself up off the floor. You're good. Like, just stop. She's so sassy. It's wonderful.
I'm curious because now you've written and released a few books. Do you still have, and I'm asking this for the people who are in the process of, so do you still have moments of like nervousness and like, oh my gosh, is this going to be good?
Oh, absolutely. Every step of the process for every single book I have moments of, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Or, oh my goodness, are people going to hate this? I think it's human nature to question yourself, and it's human nature to feel a little nervous about like exposing parts of your like mind to the world. So every author I've ever spoken to has said the same thing. I think one of the things that Julia actually told me, which was really cool, was she goes, every single author is feeling the exact same way you do. So you're in good company. Mm-hmm. So that's always kind of, I'm like, I just think of some of my favorite authors and I'm like, okay, well, they've probably felt this way too. And if they can handle it, so can I.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I had a question, one more follow-up on the faux pas that you're like worried about. Did many or any of them come to pass?
Yes, yes. One of the funny things is I didn't research like cover trends. I didn't research title trends. I didn't research I didn't know you were supposed to reach out to a PA and not the author directly if you wanted to do cross promotions. There were so many different like little things, or I didn't know what a mass promo group in Facebook was, and so it was just kind of like stumbling along for a little while until, I caught on to like all the little interworkings of the author world. Okay. And were the consequences dire? No, not at all. For the most part, the thing is, for the most part, everyone I've come into contact in this community has been really willing to, like, one, forgive if you kind of misstep, but also kind of point you in the right path. I don't think I've ever messed up, quote unquote, and had people like point and laugh at me or been like cruel to me. And so it's kind of, you just kind of learn and go, and everyone's learning. And so it was never like the worst thing or the end of the world for me. It was just another excuse to learn. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I suspected that because I spend time with indie authors and I'm like, they're really nice. Like, I recently put a post up where I was like, indie authors should be ruling the world. They really should. I'm like, they're amazing people. I have these amazing interactions every day with lovely, generous, successful people. I'm like, they should really be ruling the world. So now you said you have two beautiful, headstrong daughters. Yes. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your writing routine and how do you make time to write? It is a balancing act most days. My husband works nights, and so I find that the best time for me to write is while he's at work and the kids are asleep. And so I actually use Dragon Dictation. It saved my life, and I will tell everyone that I ever talk to how awesome Dragon Dictation is. It's one of my favorite tools as a writer, and because I write romance, I can't necessarily dictate in front of my three-nager some of the steamy scenes. So I wait till she's asleep. But, if you were to come over to my house in the evening, you would see me folding clothes and talking to myself or dictating. And that is how I get most of my writing time done and, manage my household. My husband has a high-stress job. He works a lot. And so, sometimes a lot of that falls on my shoulders. And Dragon Dictation allows me to write and get what I need to done at the same time. That's amazing. So when you got it, because I know a lot of people use it, but nobody's on my podcast talked about it specifically. So I'm really curious, how did you decide to use it, and what was the process for you of from going from not doing? Because I know there's a process. So can you tell us a little bit about it? Yeah. So it is very hard to tame the dragon. I almost want like a certificate for my office that says I tamed the dragon, because it is a process and it is really difficult. But I was at this point early on in my writing career where I was staying up till 4 a.m. writing because, and it was so time consuming. And then I would wake up again at 7 a.m. to take care of my kids. And I was like, I can't live like this, but I have a lot of aspirations as a writer, and I need to find a way that I can write faster and get what I need to get done, but still manage my home. And so I joined a lot of mom writing groups on Facebook, and a lot of them were talking about Dragon Dictation. And when I first downloaded it, I absolutely hated it. I'm the type of person that sometimes I can get frustrated if I don't pick something up right off the bat. I don't know.
I am too.
I don't know what it is about my personality, but I get so mad at myself if I don't figure something out right then and there. And so I had to be really patient, and I had to study. There's so many books. I couldn't even list them all. So many websites that'll teach you how to work with Dragon Dictation. It probably took me about 2 weeks of consistently writing with Dragon Dictation to get used to it. And then afterwards, I would find myself speaking in dictation. So I would say, hello, it's nice to see you, period. Do you think you can? And my husband would catch me. He was like, did you just say comma? And I was like, I think I did. Please just ignore it. So it's like you have to get in the zone to dictate. You have to switch your mind on for it. You have to say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. But once you learn it, and if you stick with it, it was the best thing I could have done.
So now that you're using it, you are not staying up till 4 a.m. writing.
No, my write time is strictly from 7 to 11 every night, and I can write between 5,000 and 7,000 words a day now with Dragon Dictation.
Wow.
Yes, and before I was staying up till 4 a.m, I was barely getting between 3,000 and 4,000 words out, and I mean that was really good days too. And I would say the accuracy is about between 85 and 90%. So the trade-off, I think, is worth it.
Yeah, because you get so many more words done. You have to edit them, but there's so many more. Okay. You still save time.
Yes.
So after you finish writing your book, then what is your revision process?
So I revise by the chapter. So my write time is from 7 to 11. So I will dictate from that time. And then I usually wake up around 6:30 in the morning, and I will revise what I wrote the night before until my children wake up. And then once I've revised it, I upload it to this amazing website I just learned about probably 2 weeks ago. So this is fairly new. Betabooks.com. Mm-hmm. It is, and it sends new chapters to my beta readers right then and there when I upload it. And then they provide feedback. And once I'm done Dragon Dictating the full book, I go back and I look at all their comments and I do a final draft after that.
Okay. And then how did you find these betas?
I got very, very lucky. I made friends. Well, before I even started writing, I was really huge in the reading community in the sense of I was following all my favorite authors. I was engaging. I was getting on ARC teams. So it was really cool to build those friendships before I started writing. So I kind of already had an idea of who was already beta reading, who, based on just my conversations with people, who was a really insightful reader and who could look at a manuscript critically. And I had already built those friendships. And so it was really easy just to reach out to them and be like, hey, buddy, I wrote a book. Do you want to beta read it? So I think taking the time to build relationships in the book community and paying close attention to who really dives in deep to a story. So the people who aren't just oh yeah, this was cool, but the people who write a couple paragraphs on a thread and are I really liked how the MC, grew over the course of the 3 books. So that's how I found them. And I'm very lucky with all my beta readers. They're just phenomenal people.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a book with somebody about beta reading because you think, a lot of authors have this sense that, the beta readers are doing you a favor. And of course they are, but it's like a trade, because they love what they're doing as well. It's like kind of an even trade. It's not as much a favor as it is a trade. And so, but finding a good one to help you really improve your books is, I think, finding and being it's a skill that I think we don't. I like that you were specific. Like, I was looking for specific characteristics in your beta readers to be able to get the best feedback.
And I will say too, like, I do have like one or two beta readers that are just really vocal in my group and are just love my books. And I don't know, I like just having them on the team because it's almost a confidence booster too, because you'll have the really critical beta readers who are like, okay, this isn't working for me, and so maybe I'm just a sensitive person. It's nice to have like the super fans on the team too to kind of balance that out, so you still feel confident in your abilities. And again, maybe I'm just sensitive, but I like to have a blend on my team.
I like that. No, work with who you are. And if you know you're somebody that responds better to positive reinforcement, which I do, I'm like, I respond a lot better to positive reinforcement than I do to critique, even though I know I need both in order to be a better writer.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, awesome. And so you were saying, and so I'm kind of transitioning into the marketing because you were saying that you interacted and you were kind of befriended a lot of the people in the genre, various, beta readers and authors and at least fan girls on some of them before you started writing, plus that whole story with Julia Clark. So how do you think that has influenced your author journey?
So with my first book, I actually didn't tell anyone that I was friends with that I published. I was, like I said, I kind of hid. So Julia didn't even know till a couple days after I hit publish, because for me, I also didn't want to, I didn't want to hitch my wagon to hers, and I didn't want her to feel like she had to promote me or anything. Like if people liked my book, I wanted it to be on my merit. And so I didn't even tell a lot of those friendships that I published. And I slowly over time, I was like, oh, hey, this is me, by the way. And so it was kind of fun that way. But it also kind of allowed for me to start from the bottom with engaging readers and building those relationships up. Not just like the people who I was already friends with, but the people who would reach out to me like, hey, I read your book, and kind of growing those relationships organically and not just relying on the fact that I had known a lot of people in the book community before.
Okay, so I'm very curious about that. So, because a lot of what I tell people to do is to befriend people, to befriend your readers. It sounds like you'd already done that. So you had that as a skill, and then you started from scratch doing it again as your author self. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to just rely on my reader persona to sell books. I wanted to rely on the quality of my words. And I also wanted to kind of build up my brand as an author and just kind of love on the people that reached out to me and said they loved my book. So maybe it's backwards, but I didn't want to capitalize on who I was as a reader and use it as an author. So maybe that's bad advice for people, but that's what worked for me. I'm not going to tell other people to do that, but that's just how I was and how I wanted to approach it.
I'd like to, which I think everybody has their own path. So what works for you works for you. But I'd like to dive a little bit into the way that you're doing it, because here's what a lot of people have a challenge with is building friendships as an author because they don't want to they have this resistance around being salesy. And so even just trying to show up as an author oftentimes produces a lot of resistance because they're like, if I show up as an author, then people are automatically going to assume that I'm trying to sell them my book. And so I find it very curious that I like and interesting, and not like bad interesting, like actually interesting. not like in the interesting, but in the like actually interesting. And I would like to see like what your mindset was as you approach people and as they approach you, so that you were doing it and not from this salesy way. Because that's a big challenge that a lot of people have is feeling like if I'm an author and I'm approaching people as an author, then I'm inherently salesy. And you obviously that's not been true for you. So can we talk, like, are you able to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing too is I have a marketing background. I was an interactive producer for a company, and my whole job was to respond to people on Twitter. So I represented a few companies, and my whole job was to seek out moments of intent, which means, so for example, I worked for a pretty big pizza company, and we would look for students that were saying, I have to study tonight. And my job as an interactive producer would be to respond to them and say, hey, here's a coupon for 50% off that pizza while you're studying. And so we weren't necessarily looking for people like, you have to be creative about the way you're reaching out to people in a way that's organic and meaningful. And so I think my job as an interactive producer prior to becoming an author really helped me seek out those meaningful conversations and looking for ways to discuss my book without just dropping a link and running. So you kind of have to change the way that you think, and you have to seek out like that. But also, I've really approached my journey as marketing and as just like building a reader base by really loving on my readers, and especially loving on my loudest readers. So the readers that are like talking about my books and, really like engaging in my groups, those are the ones that I just really wrap up in big group hugs, because they don't have to tell the world about my books, right? Like they don't have to take time out of their day to do that. And so really cultivating those relationships with people that are going out of their way to talk about your books, they're going to be the ones that tell their friends and tell their friends about what they're reading. And when you love on them, and it doesn't even have to be like this skeevy, manipulative thing where you're like, I'm going to love the louder readers, like just a genuine, organic relationship that you build where you just pour into those people that are taking the time to discuss your books. That is how most of my readers have found me, is through those people.
I think that's, again, very profound. I love this so much. This is really, really good. This is really good because I wanted to ask, I mean, you have a background in this, so that was really beautiful though. Did you say it was moments of intention, or what did you say?
Yeah. You find moments of intent. So like the whole training that my old job would go for, it's actually, well, no, I can't say what companies I would work for. That's not
okay. Yeah, that's okay.
But we would just seek out opportunities to discuss what we would sell. So I worked for an unnamed, I represented an unnamed restaurant where the women where an owl might be the logo. And it was funny because I was very pregnant and I would sit on my couch and I would have to respond to men and be like, hey, come have a drink with me. But, I wasn't really one of them. But yeah, so we would invite people to the bar, but they would say, hey, I'm watching the game. And you would have to be like, oh, well, come watch the game with us. Or they would say, I'm hungry tonight. And you'd be like, oh, well, here's a coupon for half off appetizers. So you have to seek out those opportunities. Or like, even if someone's saying, I'm going on vacation, be like, hey, do you need a vacation read? And it doesn't have to be salesy. You don't have to word it and like, well, I have the book for you, ma'am. Like, genuinely discuss their what they're doing. Oh, you're going on vacation? Where are you going? Are you going to be at the beach? And have it doesn't take that long to build something organic for you to be able to mention your book.
I think there's so many things that I like about what you're saying. One, I'm going to point out that when you are giving them an opportunity with a coupon, like they can still say no or yes. Like they don't have to respond. It's just an offer. And so practicing being able to make an offer without the expectation, because what's hard is the expectation that people say yes and then they say no. That's the part that really, I think, has a lot of tension in it, because you're like, yeah, I'm putting this out there. I hope they say yes. But if you can put it out there without the hope that they say yes, and it's brilliant that you started for another company where you're like, I'm not even there at the restaurant. I'm just here at home tweeting.
I'm
so
like
I have
pregnant sitting eating ice cream, but
I have no attachment to whether they say yes or not, because I'm not there. I'm just doing this job. And so you're able to get into that mindset of not having the expectation, because that really frees you when you don't have the actual expectation of them saying yes.
Yes.
Because you're like, I could just make this offer. They can say yes or no. I also really appreciate I think a lot of people think it takes a long time to build relationships to a point that you can mention your book. And so you're like, you could just go back and forth for like a minute.
Yeah, like a minute of your time. That's a crazy thing. Is a minute of your time could lead to your loudest reader, who's going to tell the most people about you.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that just crazy? Like, just a minute of your time. I had one reader and I adore her. She is the sweetest person I've ever talked to. She would just walk to the ends of the earth for anyone. And she had posted that her grandmother was in the hospital, and privately, I didn't do this in public, and though probably I'm going back on that by telling you about it now, but that's okay. Privately, I sent flowers to her grandmother at the hospital. And since then, and I had no expectations whatsoever. I was just loving on a reader, because a part of building relationships sometimes is doing it knowing that it might not come back to help you. It might not come back to mean anything other than you just being a decent human being and loving on a reader, right? Mm-hmm. But she turned out to be one of the sweetest friends that I have. But two, she's the first to recommend my books. So I think a part of it too is just, I know it's cheesy and cliche to be like, just treat others how you want to be treated. But I mean, if you really value the people you're talking to and really engage with them in a meaningful way, then of course it's going to come back to benefit you, even if it's not just with books and it's a friendship. Everything is an opportunity to build a really awesome friendship.
Oh, we're friends now, Coralee. Now you're my friend. It happened.
There we go.
I really like that. I say this all the time, but I really love that, because I think a lot of women, especially, and I have a lot of women listeners, a lot of women think about marketing as skeevy, right? Or sleazy or salesy. And what I try, one of the biggest mindset shifts that I try to emphasize is that, especially as women in this kind of market where you're talking about, befriending your readers, actually befriending your readers and communicating with them, we have as somewhat, and this is very a generality, but we have a leg up on communicating often, we have, it's this kind of communicating and connecting with people is something that happens a lot more naturally for women generally than men. And so if you can approach it as meeting people and being actually interested and actually curious and caring, and not in this, I'm marketing now, like mindset, but it feels kind of awkward and unnatural.
Right.
Yeah, I think I love how you're talking about it. I think you're talking about it in a way that a lot of people are going to understand and be like, oh. Okay.
Well, I'm glad I could,
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I can just be a caring, genuine person.
Well, that's most of the indie author community. That's the fun. From my experience, people are naturally inclined to be helpful and genuine and kind. And so I think if people just use what they're naturally inclined to do and like have that at the forefront of their mind when they're interacting with potential readers, then I think they would find that their marketing efforts are so much more seamless.
Oh my gosh. I love interviewing people like you because you're like, I have a background in marketing and I communicate really well because I'm a writer. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Okay, so I wanted to ask, what have been the most effective marketing tools besides word of mouth and befriending people, which is obviously, I think, the best. But let's talk about like tools and strategies. So is there anything that has been really effective for you?
I would say Pinterest has actually been a very surprising marketing tool for me. The ads on Pinterest are fairly inexpensive. I actually haven't even had to use one yet just because the organic reach is so incredible on that platform. If you think about it, as a romance author, right, this isn't necessarily the same for everyone. My market is women between a certain age, and like 90% of the users on Pinterest are women. And they're saying now that women spend more time on Pinterest now than they are on almost any other platform, with the exception of Facebook.
Wow.
And so I've been trying to build like an organic following there, and it's actually been pretty positive for me. I've researched a lot of different ways, and the best advice I was given was to generate my own content, because if you're just repinning other people's stuff, they're not finding you, they're finding those people you're repinning, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take the time to put your covers out there, put your links out there, and really brand yourself on Pinterest, my website traffic has increased significantly since using Pinterest. But I mean, my market's there, so you should always go where your market's going to be. And people on Pinterest are looking for stuff. Like Pinterest is for organizing things that interest you. So their entire purpose for going to Pinterest is to look for stuff. Right. So why shouldn't your stuff be on Pinterest?
I definitely have a to be read board on Pinterest. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has a board of like books that I want to read. And then, yeah. Okay. So nobody I've talked to, I'm like, ooh. See, I'm noticing, I'm like reflecting as you're talking. I'm like, we haven't really asked a whole bunch about the writing, but you're so brilliant at the marketing that I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Even though like you're a really excellent writer, and I highly recommend everybody, if you like reverse harems, I highly recommend her books, but you're really brilliant at this. So I want to talk about the Pinterest. Where are you? So you're making your own Pinterest graphics, because you're saying not just recycling other people's. Where are you putting those?
I pin them to different boards. So I have a writing prompt board, which actually has been good networking to meet other authors. So I generate a bunch of writing prompts and I share them on Pinterest. And it's really fun because other authors will comment like lines and things like that, like starting a story. And so you get to build relationships that way. And then I also shared teasers for my books. I share the cover for my books. I have linked my Instagram to Pinterest so that every time I post on Pinterest, it gets added to a board that's called a day in the life of Coralee. So people can see kind of what I'm doing. And I try to be really intentional with the graphics that I share there. But I spend probably 10 minutes a day just pinning stuff. And then you can't just create your own stuff. A part of like being on Pinterest is pinning other people's stuff, because it's kind of that back and forth of promoting off one another. Yeah. So I'll repin like outfits. I have a board that's called character inspiration or character style. I really love going on Pinterest and looking up different outfits and things like that for my characters to wear. And so I have an entire board of that. And then I also created one where I create graphics with character names. I think I always go to Pinterest looking for names for my characters. And so I started like names that I really like. I'll create a graphic with that name on it, and then I share it to the name inspiration board. So.
Wow. And so how are you having these come back to your website?
So whenever you create a graphic and you put it on Pinterest, you can actually, it'll give you the option to put a website on the pin. So I always put my author website, which is www.authorcoraleejune.com.
Wink.
And yeah. Do you like how I just all about the casual slide in with the
wink, wink. Okay.
Yeah. See how I just
see, that's how she does it, you guys. How she just seamlessly. Okay, so you put your author website in there.
Yeah, and then I make sure my author website's linked to Amazon, my blog, all my other social media platforms, and I've been getting a ton of traffic. So, I mean, and it's an awesome organic way to just get your name out there so that later on when they're on Amazon too, even if it doesn't lead them straight to a landing page on Amazon, your name is going to stick out in their memory from Pinterest. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, I think I've seen her name before. I try to put my logo on every single graphic I do on Pinterest. That way my name is constantly being seen. So later on, when they're looking at books, my name sticks out in their mind.
It's familiar. It's like, oh, so how much time do you spend making graphics? How do you do it? And where are you doing it?
I have an app on my phone called Over. I believe it's $14 a month, but it has been the best investment I've made for graphics. You can upload your own font for it, and you can, it has a stock extension on it, an unlimited stock photo for Over. So I upload my font for my logo and all the different stock photos that are on there. And it takes me, I set a timer for myself and I spend 1 hour a day on marketing because I try not to go over that 1 hour because my time is best spent writing, obviously. And so I'll give myself probably about 10 minutes a day creating graphics, 10 minutes a day sharing those graphics on social media. And then the rest of my time is just spent engaging with people.
Oh my gosh. And I get today's hour. Yay! Okay. I thank you for sharing, because I know I'm getting into the details, but a lot of people imagine, they're like, oh my gosh, all that time that she has to spend. And you're like, 10 minutes. Like not 2 hours, 10 minutes.
No, I set timers for myself. Yeah. Because social media can sometimes be such, like, it sucks you in sometimes. And then you look up and you're like, 4 hours. When did this happen? So I will literally have my phone out and I will set a timer because my time is best spent writing. And that's, my time is valuable because I have these children that run around. And so I have to be super intentional and I have to streamline a lot of the things that I do so that I'm not, just fumbling around working on graphics for 5 hours a day. I have to, so I've spent a lot of time finding these apps and finding these things that make it really easy to just, all right, we're done. Move on. Yeah.
So you spend $14 a month, but you save hours of time. It's a really good trade.
It's a very good trade. And it's called Over, the app is. And if you look online, there's like tons and tons of companies and marketing people that like suggest Over. It's one of the really, really, it's better than Canva in my opinion.
Ooh.
So yes, it's awesome.
Okay, awesome. I wanted to, a couple more questions. I want to ask you, can you tell us about an obstacle or challenge that you faced and how you worked through it?
Well, this whole time we've been talking about time management and like the different things. I think the biggest obstacle in the beginning for me was just learning how, like, okay, I want to be a writer. this is the amount of time or the number of hours I have in a day, and these are my responsibilities, and how am I going to overcome it? Like, my kids aren't an obstacle, but trying to navigate raising my children and doing all this other stuff that I want to do, I think it took me a few months to have a process and have a schedule, and not just a schedule for getting stuff done, but having a schedule for off days. I think the hardest thing about being an author is there's no like set schedule, right? You make your own hours. And so I was like, how did I work 14 hours today? And so I'm a very systematic person. I have daily goals. I set schedules for myself. And it's kind of funny that I'm an author and I'm so artsy, but like, I really do. I like knowing the expectation for myself. And so the biggest obstacle with becoming an author was establishing those expectations, establishing that schedule for myself, and establishing processes so everything goes seamlessly.
That is, and there's a thing that happens before that happens. Okay. So a lot of it's the difference between finding time to write and making time to write. And there's like a decision that happens where you're like, now I'm going to make this happen.
Yes.
And once you have that decision, then it's a matter of organizing your time so that you can. But before that, it's how can I find time to write? Can you tell us, you gave me a teaser, you guys, we talked about it a little bit ahead of time. But can you tell us one of the ways that you've gotten creative? And I'm winking at so what do you do? Do you have a membership somewhere?
Okay. So my mom actually came to town, and the laundry was piled up in my house. The dishes were overflowing. The kids were running around. And I was like, how can I follow my dreams when I can't do this? And she was like, you need to get out of the house. You need a babysitter or something. And I was like, I can't get a babysitter. And she was like, you need a gym membership. And so, of course, like, my house is falling apart. And I'm like, now you're calling me fat. Like, I can't do anything. And my mom's like, no, they have the daycare at the gyms. You need to go and just sit by the pool and write. And I'm like, what? And so for $60 a month, I go to the gym. My kids get to go in this little play area where they have the workers there that play with them. And it's like this giant jungle gym. So they're even exhausted when we're done. And then I take my little iPad and I go to the pool and I sit by the pool and I write at the gym. I don't remember the last time I actually exercised there, but I get gym time or writing time, and my kids are happy and taken care of, and like, it's time away from the house. I think as a stay-at-home mom and a writer, sometimes you just want to leave the house and look at something else and be like, okay, I interacted with other humans that are my age today. Go team. So you have to think outside the box to carve out that time for yourself. And I love my gym membership. I never get on the workout stuff, but it gives me time.
I love that so much, because it's the difference, what I just said is the difference between when you're like, I'm going to make the time, and then you can get creative. My sister, she's a writer, and she did the same thing. And she also, if you have an IKEA near you,
oh my gosh.
IKEA has a play area for kids if you have, and you can, and then they have like coffee and food. So she takes her kids there, they play, then they get a cheap meal, but while they're playing, she doesn't shop, she writes.
Yeah, they have so many comfortable couches. Like, you could just find just find one of their little living rooms. That's a brilliant idea. There's an IKEA near here.
See, I just gave you another idea for the times when you're like, oh, the gym is closed today, or whatever, or it's after hours. IKEA.
Yes.
Or I want to go.
Smart.
I need to go to IKEA anyways, and they have meatballs. Okay, what advice would you give to other authors who want to be successful?
I feel like everything we've talked about.
I know. Anything you'd like to emphasize?
Like I said before, I'm going to say it a million times probably, and I've told a lot of people who've reached out to me asking, love on your reader. Like, I wrote my first book with the expectation that my mother would be the only one that read it. And, Grandma June actually was the one that read it. But I mean, and I've always approached writing with just wrapping up my readers into a group hug and loving on them as much as I can and doing everything I can to make them happy. And over time, that group hug has just grown and grown and grown because they're just adding more to the hug. And that's cheesy. And maybe I'm a hippie for saying it that way, and I don't even care. I just think the best advice I could ever give anyone is to just really pour into your readers, pour into the people taking time out of their day to recommend your books, love on the people that are reaching out to tell you it's awesome. I know sometimes you get messages in the middle of the night from people who just read your book and they loved it. And sometimes it's easy to get tired or lazy and not respond, but it's always you never regret responding. You always regret not responding. So just take the time. It has made a world of difference in my career.
I am a hippie as well, so you're good here. I was tearing up as you were talking about group hugs, and the group hug just gets bigger, and I'm like, yes, that is how it can be. And then you're like, and I'm a hippie, and you're like, I might sound hippie-ish, and I'm like, that's okay. I went to Santa Cruz. Can you tell us? Oh man, I'm group hugging you right now. Okay. Can you tell us about your latest book? And you guys, this is so funny because her books, especially this latest one, is not group huggy. It's so angsty and
it's so
sexy
angsty
and dark and
gritty. I know, it's so funny. Well, what's funny too is someone mentioned this last week. They're like, well, when I look at your name, I think of Southern sweet romances. And I'm like, I do not write that. I write dark, angsty reads. My latest book is Sunshine and Bullets. Mm-hmm. It's a dark contemporary RH, and it's got some twisty things in the plot. And a lot of people have been very shocked and are begging me for the next book.
Oh my gosh.
It has almost 200 5-star reviews now. So I'm really excited about it.
Dude, it is so good.
It was awesome.
So good. I told you, I reached out because it came out and 2 days later I read it. And then 2 days later I was like, I feel like I've been waiting forever for the next book. I've been waiting forever. It's so, so good. I reread it when I reread it later when I was like, it's been so long.
That's so fun.
Which is not. People come out with these books so fast for how fast, so fast. You're like,
right.
But yeah.
Well, the next book comes out December 2nd. And then I have another book coming out the 28th of this month. It's the 4th book in my Walker series, which is the dystopian RH that I write.
And I really like that one.
Lots of fun things.
I really like that one too. I really like that series. Oh, and you do have some twisty stuff in there. It makes it so interesting. A couple of interviews ago, I was like, my goal is to have people want to throw their Kindle across the room and then race back over to pick it up.
Yes.
No! Wait, what's going to happen next? And I think you do that pretty well. I like that. Okay, so where can people find you?
They can go to my website at authorcoraleejune.com. And then my handle for literally every social media form out there is also author Coralee June.
Including Pinterest?
Including Pinterest. The only one that is not is Twitter. I might be a little bitter about that, but everything you can find me on my website. So just check it out there and you'll see all of my stuff.
Yeah. And we spent this whole time talking about social media. So she's going to be very good at responding.
Yes. I'm good at responding.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Really, I wish we had more time, but that's okay because this is a plenty. But you're such a good writer, and I feel bad that we didn't talk about that as much as I want to. But people, go check out her books. Go check out her books. They are so good. Okay. And thank you, Coralee, so much for being here and sharing your time with us.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun being here. So
awesome. Yay! And thank you, author bosses. Hugs and happy authoring here from Author Like a Boss. Hey, boss, you made it to the end of the episode. You're the best. Because of that, I'm going to give you a special invitation to find out more about the Author Boss Academy, where I and a bunch of really awesome authors hang out, have fun, and get stuff done. If you end up joining, tell me the secret word, and you'll get a special bonus. Find out more about the Academy at authorlikeaboss.com/academy. The secret word is nipples. Hugs and happy authoring. I hope to see you soon.
If you love the Author Like a Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.